The day I learned my ranch had been sold, I thought it had to be a mistake. I was standing in my kitchen when a certified letter arrived. Inside was a notice claiming that my 4,800-acre ranch was no longer mine. The buyer? A company connected to my HOA. According to documents, I had supposedly signed a deed transferring the entire property months earlier. There was only one problem. I had never signed it. I immediately pulled out my original deed, the one my father had left me, and compared it with a copy attached to the sale documents. At first glance, everything looked legitimate. My name was there. The property description was there. Even what appeared to be my signature was on the final page. But I knew one thing for certain. That wasn't my signature. I called the county recorder's office and asked for every document connected to my property. Within hours, I discovered something even worse. The forged deed had been filed through a chain of paperwork designed to make the fake transfer look completely legal. Then the HOA had used that fraudulent deed to convince a private buyer that they had the authority to sell my ranch. The buyer had already started preparing the property for development. Survey crews were measuring boundaries. Construction equipment was being brought onto the land, and new signs had been installed along my private road. I drove straight to the ranch. When I arrived, an HOA representative was standing near the gate. He calmly told me I was trespassing. I almost laughed. "This is my ranch," I said. He handed me a copy of the forged deed. Then he said something that changed everything. "According to this document, it isn't." I didn't argue. I simply took photographs, collected copies of every document I could find, and left because I knew exactly who needed to see them. My wife. She was a federal judge, and she had spent years seeing how seemingly legitimate paperwork could hide something much darker. That evening, I placed the entire file on our dining table. She studied the deed silently. Then she looked at me. "Did you sign this?" "No." She examined the signature again. Then she compared the dates. Her expression changed. "This document has a problem," she said. The notary information didn't match the location where I had been on the date of the supposed signing. I had been hundreds of miles away. But that wasn't the only problem. The property description contained a legal reference that didn't exist in my original deed. Someone had copied parts of an older document, modified them, and created a new transfer instrument. My wife didn't tell me how to handle the case, because she couldn't participate in my legal matter. Instead, she told me something much more important. Preserve everything. Don't alter anything. Let the investigators follow the evidence. So I contacted an independent attorney and reported the suspected fraud. The investigation began. And that's when the HOA's story started falling apart. The supposed sale had happened remarkably quickly. The forged deed was recorded. The HOA claimed ownership. A connected company purchased the property, and development plans appeared almost immediately. But investigators discovered that several people involved in the transaction had communicated before the deed was ever recorded. Their messages suggested they already expected to control the ranch. Then came the breakthrough. A handwriting expert examined the signature. The result was clear. It wasn't mine. The deed was fraudulent. The county placed a legal hold on the disputed records, and the buyer was forced to stop development while the ownership dispute was investigated. But the HOA still insisted they had done nothing wrong. Then investigators uncovered the document trail. Someone connected to the HOA had obtained a copy of my legitimate deed. That document became the foundation for the forged version. The goal appeared to be simple. Make the fake deed look real enough to survive a quick review. For a while, it worked, until someone actually compared the documents line by line. The case eventually reached court. The fraudulent deed was challenged. The alleged transfer was rejected, and the property was legally recognized as mine. The HOA's entire plan collapsed. The company that had purchased the ranch was left fighting over the money it had paid. The development project disappeared, and the people responsible faced serious legal consequences. As for me, I put a new lock on my gate, not because I was afraid, because after what happened, I wanted everyone to understand one simple fact. A piece of paper doesn't become legitimate just because someone files it with the government. And a signature doesn't become yours just because somebody manages to copy it. The most shocking part wasn't that someone tried to steal my ranch. It was how many layers of paperwork were created to make the theft look legitimate. My wife didn't save my ranch by using her position. She couldn't. She saved me from making a mistake by recognizing the warning signs and telling me to preserve the evidence and let the proper legal process expose the truth. In the end, the deed told one story, the evidence told another, and the evidence won. If you enjoyed this HOA story, make sure to subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from.